People don't lose in life because they lack talent. They don't fail because they don't have enough intelligence, or because opportunity never showed up. Most often people fail because they never learned how to control their emotions. They let anger get the best of them, and it cost them a relationship. They let fear keep them from taking a chance, and it cost them an opportunity. They let excitement outrun judgment, and it cost them stability. Over and over, I've watched people with incredible potential lose simply because they never gained mastery over their own emotions. Here's what I've learned: life, RESPONDS2, discipline and emotional discipline, is one of the most important of them. All you can't always control what happens around you. You can't control the economy, the weather, or the behavior of other people, but you can control how you respond. And your response is driven by your emotions. Control those emotions, and you take back control of your results. Think about this: results are nothing more than the accumulation of decisions. Every decision you make nudges your life in one direction or another, and what drives those decisions in the moment? Emotions. Do you let anger decide? Do you let fear decide? Do you let impatience or excitement take the wheel? If so, you've handed over your results to feelings that are temporary, fleeting, and often destructive. But if you can pause, if you can think, if you can discipline yourself to control those emotions, you regain command. You make decisions that serve your future, not just your moment. I've seen people with less talent, less education, less experience outperform others simply because they mastered their emotions. They didn't react when others would have exploded. They stayed calm under pressure. When others fell apart, they made rational choices when everyone else was blinded by impulse. And because of that, they got the promotion. They built the business, earned the respect. Not because they were the smartest in the room, but because they were the most disciplined. If you can control your emotions, you can control your results. Emotions are not your enemy. They're natural, they're human, and they're important, but they must be managed. They must be guided. Left unchecked, emotions will sabotage your future. But if you educate yourself to control them, they become fuel for better decisions, stronger RELATIONSHIPS, and consistent achievement. And that's what I want to talk about today. The cost of uncontrolled emotions, what happens when they're in charge. And I want to talk about the shift, learning to see emotions as signals, not commands. We'll get into all the higher level too, but we're playing the long game, and that takes consistency and resilience. Staying in control over time, and when you master that, you'll find that results in every area of life. Financial, personal, relational are not determined by chance, but by how well you've mastered yourself. Uncontrolled emotions are expensive. They cost more than most people ever realize. They cost people money. They cost people RELATIONSHIPS. They cost people health, and sometimes they cost people their entire future. And the tragedy is, it's rarely because someone lacked ability or opportunity. It's because they never learned to master themselves in the moment. I've seen anger ruin more opportunities than ignorance ever did. One outburst, one uncontrolled reaction, and years of trust or credibility can disappear. A talented employee loses a promotion because they couldn't keep their temper. A business deal falls apart because someone let frustration spill out in the wrong moment. Anger, when left unchecked, doesn't just damage today, it damages tomorrow. Fear does the same. Fear has kept more people from stepping into their future than failure ever has. How many people have missed opportunities because they let fear paralyze them, the chance to start a business, to learn a new skill, to ask for the promotion, to make the investment, all lost not because it wasn't possible but because fear, SHOUTED, louder than reason. Fear left uncontrolled, SDEALS, courage, SDEALS, initiative, and SDEALS, RESULTS. Even excitement, something positive, can sabotage RESULTS when it OUTRUNS, discipline. I've watched people get caught up in the excitement of an idea, rushing ahead without thinking it through. They spend money recklessly, they make COMMITS. They can't keep, they start projects with no foundation. Excitement is wonderful when controlled but disastrous when unchecked. It makes people mistake enthusiasm for wisdom and they pay the price later. Think about how many DECISIONS are made in MOMENTS of emotion that later lead to regret. Words spoken in anger that can't be taken back, money spent in excitement that can't be RECOVRED. OPPORTUNITIES, ignored in fear, that never return. Every one of those choices could have been different if only EMOTINS had been under control. I knew a man years ago who was brilliant in his field, skilled and knowledgeable. He could have gone far, but his downfall was always the same. He couldn't control his temper in meetings. He would explode at the slightest criticism. Clients grew weary. COLLEGUES, avoided HIM leaders. Passed HIM over for advancement. His EMOTIONS kept costing HIM RESULTS he could have easily achieved. Talent wasn't the problem, drive wasn't the problem, his EMOTIONS were the problem. That's the danger of letting EMOTIONS run unchecked. They can undo in a moment what it took years to build. And here's the truth, life will test your EMOTIONS constantly. You'll be challenged, PROVOKD. Tempted, discouraged. If your EMOTIONS control you'll always be at the mercy of circumstances. But if you learn to control your EMOTIONS, you put yourself back in charge of your RESPONSES, and therefore your RESULTS, so don't misunderstand me. EMOTIONS aren't bad, they're natural, human and powerful, but when they're in charge, they lead to impulsive REACTIONS instead of thoughtful RESPONSES. The cost of uncontrolled EMOTIONS is simply too high. That's why learning to master them is non-negotiable, and the first step in mastery is to shift how you see them, not as commands you must obey, but as signals you can interpret. And that's what I want to talk about next, because once you realize EMOTIONS are signals, not orders, you gain the power to pause, to think, to respond wisely. And that's when EMOTIONS begin working for you instead of against you. EMOTIONS are powerful, but they were never meant to be your master. The real key is to understand them for what they are. SIGNALS, they're INDICTORS, not instructions. They tell you something is happening, but they don't dictate what you must do. The mistake most people make is TRATNG. EMOTIONS like commands. They feel anger and assume they must lash out. They feel fear and assume they must run. They feel excitement and assume they must jump in. But EMOTIONS don't have that authority unless you give it to them. Think of EMOTIONS like the lights on the dashboard of your car. When a red light comes on, it doesn't mean you should slam on the brakes or pull the wheel left. It means something needs your attention. The light is a signal, not the driver. Same with EMOTIONS. Anger doesn't mean you must explode. Fear doesn't mean you must hide. Excitement doesn't mean you must leap without looking. Their signal saying, pay attention here. Something important is happening. What you do next, that's where wisdom and discipline come in. Here's an example. Most of us are familiar with anger. Sometimes it gives us a little signal that a boundary may have been crossed, that something feels unjust or unfair. That's valuable information, but If you let anger drive, you'll burn bridges, say things you regret, and create new problems if instead you treat anger as a signal. You pause and ask why you're angry, what the real issue is, and what the best way to handle it might be. Now anger has served its purpose. It made you pay attention. Without dstrying your results. Or think about fear. Fear is a signal too. It tells you there may be danger. There may be risk. That's good information, but if you let fear be the command, you'll never step forward, never take chances, never grow. Fear signal should be to slow down, look carefully, prepare wisely. Not to stop forever. Fear isn't a command to quit, it's a reminder to check your preparation. Even excitement is just a signal. It tells you there's potential, something worth paying attention to. But if you let excitement command you, you'll leap too soon, commit too fast. Spend too much. Excitement signal is that there's an opportunity, but the wise response is to examine, to think, to make sure it fits your vision and your plan. Excitement should be a motivator, not your decision maker. See, emotions are information. They're like messengers. They come knocking on the door saying something important is happening. But you don't hand the messenger the keys to your house. You listen, you thank them, and then you decide what to do. That's the difference between being controlled by emotions and being in control of them. Successful people don't avoid emotions. They have them just like everyone else. They feel fear, anger, joy, disappointment, excitement. But the difference is they don't let emotions decide for them. They pause long enough to separate the signal from the command. They ask what the emotion is telling them and what the best response might be. That's mastery, that's control. The mistake is thinking the goal is to eliminate emotions. That's impossible and undesirable. Emotions give COLOUR to life. They make us human, but the real goal is to interpret them correctly, to recognize the signal but still decide the response. That's the discipline that keeps you from being hijacked in the moment and keeps your results consistent over time. And here's what's interesting: once you start treating emotions as signals, you'll find they actually work for you. Anger motivates chain. Instead of destruction, fear sharpens preparation. Instead of blocking opportunity, excitement fuels action. Instead of recklessness, your emotions become allies, not enemies, because you're in control, not them. That's why the next step matters so much. It's not enough to see emotions differently. You have to build the daily discipline to control them in real situations, because theory is easy. But when the heat of the moment comes, you need habits strong enough to hold you steady. And that's what I want to talk about next: how to build emotional discipline so that in every circumstance you remain in control. Discipline is the great separator. Everyone feels emotions: anger, fear, excitement, disappointment, but not everyone has trained themselves to control what happens next. That's why emotional discipline is so powerful. It's the skill that turns knowledge into action, vision into reality, and potential into results. Without it, emotions pull you in every direction. With it, you're steady, intentional, and effective. The first discipline is the pause. Nothing fancy, just learning to stop for a moment before reacting. Most damage comes from immediate reactions. Someone speaks harshly, and without pausing. You snap back something frustrates, and without pausing, you make a rash decision. But with one pause, just a breath, you create space, and in that space, wisdom has a chance to show up. It's a small discipline, but it changes everything. Along with the pause comes the habit of breathing. You'd be surprised how something so simple can be so effective. A few calm breaths lower the intensity of emotion and clear the fog from your mind. It gives you back control, emotions, rise like a wave but breathing, gives you the surfboard to ride that wave. Instead of being crushed by it, then there's the discipline of asking better questions. Instead of asking how you feel right now, ask what the wise choice is instead of asking what you want to do in the moment. Ask what outcome you want later. Those questions shift your perspective. From impulse to intention, and intention always produces better results. Then impulse, but here's the truth: discipline isn't built in the moment of crisis. Discipline is built in the daily habits you practice when things are calm. Journaling your thoughts at the end of the day builds awareness, reflecting, on how you handled the situation. TACHES, YOU lessons, REHARSING, RESPONSES in your mind, PREPARES, you for the next challenge. Even the words you speak to yourself, your self-talk become training for emotional discipline. Day by day, these small practices strengthen your ability to stay in control when it matters most. I once knew a man who had a reputation for being short tempered. Everyone avoided confrontation with him because they knew he'd explode. But over time, he began practicing the pause, the breathing, the reflection. Slowly his reputation changed. People started to notice that he was calm, that he handled pressure well, that he was steady. What happened? He built emotional discipline one small habit at a time. He didn't eliminate emotions, he learned to manage them, and that changed not only how people saw him, but also the opportunities. That OPENED up for him. That's the beauty of discipline. Just as muscles grow stronger with training, emotional control grows stronger with practice. Small acts of control, repeated daily, build incredible strength over time. One pause today, MAKS. Two pauses easier tomorrow. One calm decision today. MAKS. Wise choices more natural tomorrow. Eventually discipline becomes who you are, not just what you do. And here's the great reward: discipline brings consistency. You don't have to depend on luck or on whether you feel right in the moment. Discipline ensures that no matter what emotions rise, you remain in control. And when you're consistent, your results become consistent, because life always pays back discipline. But don't stop there. Once you've built the ability to control emotions, the next level is learning how to direct them. Because emotions hold enormous energy. If you suppress them completely, you lose that energy. But if you guide them, channel them, and use them with discipline, they become fuel for extraordinary achievement. That's the next SD. EP. Taking emotions you've learned to control and turning them into productive power. Emotions are full of energy. They carry force, intensity, momentum. Left uncontrolled, that energy can destroy. But when directed, that same energy can build, fuel, and create. That's the principle here. Emotions are like fire. Uncontrolled fire, burns, down the house. Controlled fire, WRMS, the home cooks the meal, powers the engine. The fire isn't the problem, it's whether you've learned to harness it. Uncontrolled anger, RUINS, RELATIONSHIPS, and closes doors, but DIRECTED, anger, AT, injustice. AT, wasted potential. At mediocrity can fuel determination. Many BRAKTHROUJHS have come because someone got angry enough, AT, the status quo, to declare that things must change. Anger became the spark that ignited discipline and effort. Fear is another, one left unchecked. Fear, PARALYZES, people, from ever taking risks, from ever stepping forward, but directed, fear sharpens preparation. Fear of failure can push you to prepare more thoroughly, to study more carefully, to think more clearly. A little fear properly. MANAGED. KEPS you from recklessness and forces you to bring your best, even excitement if it runs wild. It can be dangerous, but DIRECTED excitement, BECOMES passion, and passion, FUELS perseverance. Passion is what helps you keep going when RESULTS are slow, when progress is hidden. Excitement may fade, but passion disciplined, and DIRECTED. BECOMES, the deep well of energy that sustains achievement over the long run. This is how successful people use EMOTIONS. They don't ignore them, and they don't obey them blindly. They direct them, they recognize the energy is real, and then ask where they can channel it to do the most good. And that question changes everything. Instead of letting EMOTIONS sabotage RESULTS, they turn EMOTIONS into fuel for RESULTS. ATHLETES. Do this all the time. They feel the NERVES before the big game, the same nerves that could cause someone else to choke. They use to sharpen their focus. Leaders do this too. They feel frustration in MOMENTS of crisis. Instead of yelling or panicking, they channel that energy into solutions, into calm leadership that steadies everyone else. Everyday people can do the same. You can take the emotion you feel and decide. This, control me, I'll use it. That's the difference. Here's how we can make this practical. Whenever you feel an intense emotion, ask yourself where you can direct this energy so it helps you instead of hurts you. If you're angry, maybe the energy goes into working harder on your craft, proving yourself through RESULTS instead of words. If you're fearful, maybe the energy goes into extra preparation. If you're excited, maybe the energy goes into steady, consistent action. That BUILDS on the opportunity instead of rushing ahead blindly. Think about EMOTIONS as raw power on their own. They're wild, but when you put that power inside a structure, like a dam, CAPTURING, water, or a battery storing electricity, they become useful, consistent, and incredibly powerful. That's what you do with your EMOTIONS. You don't deny them, you don't waste them, you direct them into constructive channels. And here's what happens. When you do this, people begin to trust you because they see that you're not only in control of yourself, but you also bring controlled energy to every situation. You're not flat, emotionless, or detached. You're alive, passionate, focused, but in a way that BUILDS instead of DESTEROYS. That's magnetic. That EARNS, respect. That's what MAKES. People want to follow you, invest in you, and work with you. But remember, DIRECTING, EMOTIONS, isn't a one-time skill. It's a discipline you practice every day. Because life will keep bringing SITUATIONS that stir up EMOTIONS. The better you get at channeling them, the stronger you become, and that LEADS to the final state. Consistency and resilience, because long-term success isn't just about controlling and DIRECTING, EMOTIONS, once it's about doing it over and over again, until it becomes second nature. Consistency is where mastery is proven. Anyone can control their EMOTIONS. Once anyone can have a moment of discipline, a single victory over impulse, but the true measure of growth is whether you can do it again tomorrow, and again next week, and again next year. Consistency turns emotional discipline from an occasional ACT into a permanent character trait. And that's what produces lasting RESULTS. Life will keep testing you. Don't think for a second that once you've learned to pause, once you've learned to direct your EMOTIONS, the CHALLENGES will disappear. No, the tests never stop. There will always be someone who PROVOKES you, a situation that FRUSTRATS you, a problem that stirs up fear or doubt. That's guaranteed, but if you've built consistency, you won't be thrown off course. Every time the storm shows up, you'll keep steady, you'll keep moving. Resilience is part of that consistency, because the truth is sometimes you will slip. Even disciplined people let their emotions get the better of them on occasion, but resilience is the ability to bounce back quickly. Instead of letting one mistake turn into a week of regret, resilience allows you to correct, reset, and return to discipline. That's the difference between those who master themselves and those who don't. Everyone stumbles, but disciplined people recover faster. Think of the sailor ATC. He can't control the weather, the storms will come whether he's ready or not. But he can control the sails, the ropes, the rudder. He can adjust course, steady the ship, and keep it moving toward the destination. That's what emotional control looks like in life. You can't control the circumstances, but you can always control how you respond, how quickly you recover, and how faithfully you keep going in the right direction. Here's the reward: when you stay consistent, people begin to trust you. They see that you don't explode when others panic, you don't collapse under pressure. You don't let fear or anger make your decisions, and that builds credibility, that builds influence. Because people want to follow those who are steady, not those who are volatile. They want to partner with the person who remains calm, who makes rational choices, who can be counted on regardless of circumstance. That kind of consistency makes you valuable in your work, in your relationships. In every arena of life, I've seen leaders who stood out, not because they had all the answers, but because they remained calm when everyone else was panicking. Their calmness was contagious. It brought stability to the whole team. Parents do the same thing when they guide their children patiently. Instead of exploding in anger, professionals earn trust when they adapt under stress. Instead of collapsing, consistency under emotional pressure is the trait that separates those who rise from those who stumble. So, here's the key lesson: mastering your emotions isn't something you practice once, it's something you practice for life. And the longer you practice, the stronger you become. Each year of consistency adds to your stability. Each test you pass builds resilience. Over time, you become unshakable. And when you're unshakable, your results become predictable, because life storms no longer throw you off track. They only prove how steady you've become. That's why emotional control matters so much. It touches every area of your life: your wealth, your health, your relationships, your influence. Because all of them depend on your decisions, and your decisions are shaped by your emotions. Control the emotions consistently, and you control the results consistently. And that's when success becomes not an accident, not a surprise, but the natural outcome of who you've become. Results in life are never an accident, they are the outcome of choices. Habits and responses, and what drives those responses more than anything? Emotions. If emotions control you, your results are unpredictable, up one day, down the next. Depending on how you feel, but if you control your emotions, your results become steady, consistent, and reliable. That's the truth we've been circling all along. Mastery of emotions equals mastery of results. That's the path, and it leads to one simple conclusion: if you want better results, you must first master yourself. The biggest battles are not with the economy, or competitors, or circumstances. The biggest battle is within, the fight to remain steady, thoughtful, and disciplined. When emotions flare up, win that battle and the rest of life, opens to you. So here's the call to action. Begin today, not tomorrow. Not someday. Today, practice one pause before you react. Practice one breath. When you feel anger rising, ask one better question. When fear shows up, write down one reflection at the end of the day. These may seem small, but over time they add up. And the day will come when people will look at you and say nothing rattles them, nothing knocks them off balance. They are steady, and you'll know why, because you mastered the small disciplines of emotional control, and they compounded into extraordinary results. Emotions will always be part of your life. They're part of being human, but remember this: emotions may be strong, but your discipline decides where that strength takes you: toward regret or toward results, toward destruction or toward achievement. The choice is yours. Control your emotions, and you take command of your results. Control your results, and you take command of your life.